The question we keep asking ourselves is, what at all is in this SML deal that President Akufo-Addo simply does not want us to know? There are critical questions people keep asking. And Doc, I think that it's in the interest of all of us. Because one, this matter became one of public interest. This matter was pursued by the public. An investigation into this matter commenced as a result of public outcry and as a result of the fact that everybody insisted that this particular SML deal was shredded in corruption, was opaque, and could not, did not meet the standards of revenue assurances in this country. One, the company was formed in 2017, in February. The company commenced business in 2019. Before the company commenced business, the technical advisor to the GRA, Mr. Christian Tete, resigned and became the managing director to SML. SML claimed that they were engaged in one, revenue assurances, in stopping revenue leakages and underreporting, in checking fuel dilutions, in checking fuel diversions, and in ensuring that fuel that were transported from Accra got to their exact destinations. This was what SML told us. And in fact, as of 2023, it was on their website that they engaged in all these understated activities. Look, after the research, it came to bear that one, the NPA had already engaged the services of Rock Africa. The contract was signed in 2018, and Rock Africa was engaged to check fuel diversions. So what Rock Africa simply did was that before a tanker moves from the depot to its destination, they put what we call an electronic seal on it. It is only an agent of the NPA who can unlock that particular seal that had been put on it. And that particular process was being undertaken smoothly. And NPA confirmed that, in fact, in 2023, that ever since the services of Rock Africa was contacted, all fuel diversions have stopped and the seals were properly working, which meant that there was no problem. There was absolutely no problem again with fuel diversions. Then SML said they engaged in stopping fuel dilutions. Again, the NPA told us that they had engaged the services of a company called Nationwide Technologies to ensure that all fuel that was lifted and deployed could not be diluted. And all they simply did was that once the fuel is lifted, before it is discharged, the same NPA officer who checks the seal to unlock it will check the quality and standard of fuel that had arrived at its destination. And it was for no reason that, the fuel marking was introduced so that we could always supplement the gap between fuel that were lifted from Accra and what was deployed there. Again, it turned out that SML had no business at all with fuel dilutions. Then SML came out again to say they were engaged in revenue assurances. And underreportings and revenue leakages were now a thing of the past as a result of their due diligence and good work executed. Then the NPA and GRA were questioned. Look, it turned out that there was a company called the ERDMS, that is a database, that is the Enterprise National Database Management System. Together with ICOMS, they had formed a digital platform where all OMCs logged onto. And so before you even go to the depot to load fuel, you would have to fill the form, you would have to meet the invoice requirements before you are giving your way bill to go and lift fuel. And so that system from 2018 had ensured that there was absolutely no way you could even lift fuel without generating an invoice and generating a way bill from the ICOMS and ERDMS services, which meant that SML entirely had no business in it. And look, in order to track revenue leakages, you need to track the volumes. It is from the volumes you'll be able to determine how much fuel has been lifted and how much taxes ought to be paid to the state. That system had been cured because ERDMS came on board to ensure that whatever volumes were lifted were recorded electronically, and as a result, monies were paid directly to government. So there was no cash and carry system again with regards to this particular system. There was no way anybody could meet you anywhere to even beat down your revenue. If you failed to pay the exact revenue of volumes you were left in, the system will not even generate a way bill for you. And once you don't get a way bill, there's no way you can go to the bus depots to even lift fuel. So that system and it turned out that SML had no business in it. Look, now, to our surprise, SML told us in 2023 that they had ensured, as a result of all these exposés, that no, everybody was lying. And they had ensured that the government saved some 2 billion. In fact, that was in contrast with what the finance minister had said. The finance minister said he had saved 3 billion. SML said they had saved 1 billion, in fact. And that as a result of due diligence, the state had accrued 1 billion into their coffers. Today, you and I, Doc, will agree that that 1 billion SML claimed they had saved were simply monies that were transferred into their accounts. Because you cannot claim to have saved government 1 billion and then at the end of the day, it turned out that you paid yourself 1 billion. Then we should have just left those monies to go rot. Because if you came on board to save government of Ghana some amounts of monies, it turned out that the monies that were paid to you were the same amount you claim you had saved. Let's even use the finance minister's 3 billion. If you save 3 billion and you end up paying yourself 1 billion, which is, I mean, almost half, virtually 1/3 of what you had saved, then the work you came on board to do was a total waste, because you cannot save us money and we turn around to use same monies to pay you again. It doesn't add up. Aside all this, Doc,
you're better off losing 1 billion than 3 billion.
No, SML said they had saved 1 billion from their own mouth. It was the finance minister who said they had saved between 2 billion to 3 billion. So if SML's words are anything to go by, it meant that what they saved was used in paying themselves. If the finance minister's words are anything to go by, it meant that what they saved, they used close to half to pay themselves, which of course both statements have not been authenticated, because the NPA has stated clearly that they had no business in solving the issue of underreporting, and they had no business in revenue assurances. Doc, that aside, SML that was formed in 2017, everybody knew that, of course, it belonged to one Evans, who was a timber contractor. It started with about 10,000 Ghana cedis. That is information everybody knew. Why is it that at the time of awarding the contract, the government of Ghana, all because of some dubious practices, refused to conform to Section 30 of the PRMA? Why? And if you go into the Public Financial Management Act, it clearly stated how such contracts needed to be awarded. The company ought to have, the document ought to have been taken to Parliament, you and I, parliamentarians, the public ought to have scrutinized it.
But
that was not done.
What details all this?
I mean, but it doesn't tell us exactly. As of now, we don't know how the payments were even made to SML. We only know 1 billion was paid. How did we arrive at 1 billion? How did we calculate? How much were they supposed to take? At least in the petroleum upstream one, we know that they take some 0.75 pesos.
They're supposed to.
We know that they were supposed to take that. We know that they were supposed to take that also with the mineral sector. But in this particular one, we don't even know how much they were supposed to take. We don't know how the computations were done. How we arrived at paying them 1 billion. You and I cannot tell. It is because we do not have access to the contract documents. And if Suleimana asked them, of course, if we all ask them to make public the revelations, these are things we want to find in there. These are things the president hasn't told us in this particular report. If you fail to take a contract to Parliament, if you breach the procurement laws of the state, look, I beg to ask, is the punishment simply putting on hold the upstream sector contracts and asking them to continue until you finally make a determination?
Okay.
Is that a way to resolve that? Haven't we been in this country where people were penalized for procurement breaches? In fact, people went to jail due to procurement breaches. What is different with Christian Tete? What is different with the SML? All SML came on board to do was to open an office.
Well, they didn't breach it because it wasn't their responsibility. But it was the responsibility of those who were working on behalf of the public.
Doc, but we've had instances where public officers were jailed.
No, you don't
get private
me. I'm saying that it is the public, those who work for GRA.
Right. And the finance ministry, of course,
it's their responsibility
to have taken it there. But of course, if you are a company and due diligence is not done, you are liable.
Oh, yeah.
And so you must be called into it. And so these are critical questions, Doc. We keep asking ourselves in this entire SML deal. But we have said that we will pursue this matter. You cannot pay 1 billion to an entity. You are unable to explain that to the Ghanaian people. You are unable to tell us how those payments were done. And you think you can go scot-free. And look, this repeated attitude of President Akufo-Addo to sweep corruption under the carpets and cover up and then clear whoever is involved must come to an end at some point in time. Look, you go back in history, and all the presidents can be remembered for is either pleading on a corrupt official to resign, or asking a corrupt official to go and sit at home just to stop public discussion around that matter. And not a single action has been taken on anybody in this government that has been indicted for corruption. I think that they must begin answering questions with regards to SML. We want to know how the contract was signed. We want to know why the contract was sole sourced and why it wasn't opened, for bidding. We want to know why such a young contract company without any experience, why a company with just 10,000 Ghana cedis in their account, for a timber contractor was selected. We want to know how payments were being made to them. We want to know how they agreed that, how they agreed payments. And we want to know how payments were agreed and how they agreed upon payments being made to them. And we want to know the activities that were undertaken at the corridors of the NPA and the GRA. Because if you ask NPA said they had no business with SML. You ask the GRA and they are unable to pinpoint what exactly the SML came on board to do. And if you just oppose these two things together, clearly you would understand that somebody has a hand in this. And if the president is clear in his mind that he has no interest in this particular matter, they should make the findings public and they should let us get into details of whatever revelations were brought before his decks.